Hang on a minute, I forgot to show the participants so I can keep track. Okay, so welcome everyone. There's no waste of time. First day back of business week of 2021. We have our first regular city council meeting, so let's get right to it. And so welcome everyone. Hope people had a decent time over the holiday season, and we're all raring to go for a great 2021 ahead. So with that said, first item of business, Madam Clerk.
Is roll call, Your Worship, and I've taken the roll, and all members of council are present with the exception of Councillor Lareggio.
Thank you very much. And next item, please.
A motion to adopt this evening's agenda, Your Worship.
Motion to adopt. I've got Councillor Parker, seconded by Councillor Luebke. Any changes or additions? Seeing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
Confirmation of the minutes from the special meeting of council held December 21st.
Mover, please.
I move those.
Moved by Councillor Chaboyer, seconded by Councillor Cameron. Any errors or omissions? And seeing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Next item, please.
Is confirmation of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held December 21st.
And again, a mover, please. I think we've got moving by Councillor Cullen, seconded by Councillor Cameron. Again, any errors or omissions? Not seeing any, we'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Next item, please.
Under the order of presentations, Your Worship, a presentation from Jane Neal on remembering and honoring Brandon's history. Where are the women?
Great opening title. So welcome, Ms. Neal, and we know you're online and raring to go. You've got all your technology working, so we'll just turn it straight over to you.
Thank you. And yeah, it's my first virtual meeting presentation. So thank you. And good evening, Your Worship and councillors, and Happy New Year. Thank you for giving me the time to present to you. So let me introduce myself first. So I'm Jane Neal. I'm a retired college program coordinator, and I am actually many other things, but what I am not is a historian, just to make that clear. And you can tell by my accent that I'm not from here. I moved to Brandon almost 3 years ago. I've been in Canada over 30 years. And so I'm presenting this tonight through the lens of someone who is not from here. And in doing so, I do recognize the land in which I now live as the unceded territory of the Dakota, Treaty 2, and homelands of the Métis Nation. So now let me just get my slide presentation up. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
And so this evening what I'm going to do is to cover what this is all about, my findings, and the way forward. And so the project is Where Are the Women? So back in July last year, I needed to do something to motivate me to get out and about on my bike for some fitness and fun in these pandemic times. The Rosser Avenue conversations in the Brandon Sun prompted me to ask the question, where are the women? Roads seem to be named after men. So there it was, a project to get me out and about, finding evidence that women lived in Brandon. Roads, buildings, parks named after women, plaques posted about women, public art created by women. And I have to say, I set out with no intention of being here presenting to you, but here I am. Oops, okay. Oh, there we go. So off I go on my bike to go looking. And I posted my findings to Facebook along with a bio of the woman and the history of the location. And I have a 50-page document capturing all this. And I've given a copy to Sean, who's my ward councillor. And if anybody else wants a copy, I can send you one. Here are the locations. Now, these are all listed in a handout document that I think you all do have. So I'm not going to go through them, but I will introduce the women that I found. So here are the royals, and perhaps as I go through them, you can think where you would find them. So Victoria, Louise, Alexandra, Patricia, Elizabeth, and then a number of royals did visit Brandon. So there's another Elizabeth, another Alexandra, and an Anne. And then the social justice activists, Aberdeen, Clement, and McEwen. Now, I have to say here that Clement Drive and Aberdeen Avenue are named after these women's husbands. I'm not sure about McEwen either, but all of these women are deserving of the commemoration, so I added them to my list. And then there's the nurses, Jackson, Dara, and Lucille Brown. And the community builders. So Mary McVicker, again, I'm not sure that the road is named after her or the brothers, but anyway, she should have a road named after her. Elsie Zink, again, Elsie did not own the grocery store because women at that time weren't allowed to own anything. And Flora Cowan, and then Eleanor Kidd, Elspeth Reed, Ashley Neufeld, and the educators, Betty Gibson and Lily Harrison. And then I did add in Shari here. So I cheated, obviously, because this is inside the Brandon General Museum. I found so many roads named after mayors that I felt Shari should be there too. And then there's the artists and the downtown murals from Katie Slimman and Mary Lowe, and then the beautiful vamps, the artists of those, and I actually can't read the names off with my screen here, so apologies to them, but there they are. My last day of travels was on October the 4th, and I did a tour of all the teepees. And these teepees are dedicated to the memory of all of the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. So my findings. So there were 31 women publicly recognized in 40 outdoor locations around the city. People are interested, and it's skewed. People are interested and do want to know about their community. Here are some of the comments that I had on my Facebook pages of people that were really interested in what I was doing. And we know from previous presentations to council and the conversations around the Rosser Avenue debate that there is very much an interest in the history of this community. And I've also lived here long enough to also know that Brandonites do love their history and do want to know it and often don't know it. But as I said, it is skewed. The full breadth of women's history in Brandon is missing. Here are some examples to show you how much it is skewed. So here, the Manitoba Heritage Society Brandon street names. So the highlighted pink names are roads named after men. There are 34. The blue roads are named after women. There are 4. Only one of which actually resided in Brandon, the other 3 being royals. Now, this list doesn't include all the names in Brandon, and my own travels did find one more road named after a woman, McEwen Drive, provided it was named after her. Heritage Brandon was a website, was a resource that I used to find information. And once again, a skew is shown here. Of the 134 names listed of memorable Brandonites on the website, there are only 11 women. I could go on with examples to show how skewed it is when looking for public recognition of women in this community. So the way forward. So none of this is very surprising, and it isn't unique to Brandon. Names given to public spaces reflect the history of the time of naming. The city's incorporation in 1882 and its fast growth was at the height of the British Empire.
Call from 1.
Claim was being made to the land to dominate it and to colonize it, and it was men who did that. Of course, women were there too. The prairies had a massively strong female backbone, but children, husbands, cooking, sweeping, cleaning, and disenfranchisement kept them mostly out of the history books. Fortunately, times change. Our present-day history is about the calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, equality, Black Lives Matter, Me Too movement, diversity. There is a rich history to be embraced. And presently, 50% of the people in this community do not see themselves reflected in its public history. So I call on Council to put into place actions that record in public spaces women's history of this community. Here are a couple of things that can be done without much effort and show intent to do something. I have in my appendix to the document that you have, I've done some other suggestions as well. With these though, it's rename Coronation Park. It's not even named after the coronation of our present Queen. It has a plaque that's there that is in need of replacement anyway. We have plenty of royals already, so we're not going to be losing anyone. So name this park after a woman or women, and that can easily be done with the right intent to do that. And then bring back Eleanor Kidd. There are very few women commemorated, so we can't afford to lose anyone. So let's get the park back in shape for the public use and give it some priority. Now, an Eleanor Kidd garden is already in the plans for the Discovery Centre, just nothing is happening on it. And I have met with James on this, and he knows all about this. Yet, oh wait a minute. Yes, sorry. So my summer project was to find the evidence that women lived in Brandon. It was the best summer project for me in a pandemic. I learned so much about the history of this community and the role that women played in building this city and the province of Manitoba. Yet I am unsatisfied. I came to this project through the lens of someone not from here. I came looking for its history. My summer travels also revealed one other reality. The histories of Indigenous peoples is completely missing from our outdoor public spaces. And I would probably say from our indoor public spaces too. As for my own education, I've had to do a lot of searching to find some. So I call on Council to make this a priority, to reflect Indigenous people's histories in road names, green spaces, and plaques in all parts of the city. And this will help the non-Indigenous community better understand Brandon's Indigenous past and present. And I say it's not just this, but this is where my focus is with the names of public spaces. The debate we saw in Brandon around the name of Rosser Avenue is a debate that has been taking place in many other cities, with many cities taking action. And I reference some in the document that you have. And I call on this council to also take action. Thank you very much for your time, and any questions?
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Neal, for that. That was a very enlightening, certainly kudos to you for taking on this project. In this short presentation you made, I've learned a great deal, as some other testimonials that you had up there that indicated that they felt this was their backyard and they learned something. Well, it's also my backyard, and I'll bet many councillors listening in here as well will say the same thing. I defy anybody not having learned something from this short presentation, so I think there's certainly a lot more to be learned. So with that, I would like to, as we routinely do, open up the floor, so to speak, for questions if members of council have some, and you'll have to bear with me if my screen isn't showing me as big a list of participants as usual, so I'm going to try hard to watch for the hands. So please go ahead. Now I see a hand up. I'm just trying to see who it is. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Ms. Neal, thank you so much for the presentation, Jane. I know you and I in discussions, you've lived a couple of different locations throughout the world. In your travels in that time, have you found some communities maybe that are of the same age, or I know you spent some time on the West Coast, that sort of thing, that maybe these communities do a good job of it that perhaps our community could look to as an example of how we're properly, first of all, recognizing women, but also minorities and obviously Indigenous representation. Do you have some examples, possibly?
Well, not so much from where I lived, although every city I've lived or place I've lived is in a sort of a somewhere on the spectrum of getting better at doing this sort of thing. But in my research, I had the opportunity, because now we're online so much, I did listen into a webinar, and I have referenced it in the document that you had out, and it's really worthwhile listening to it and watching it again. Let me just find it. It's called Monumental Questions, Revisiting Controversial Monuments and Memorials. And this had 3 locations. So it was Victoria, and the process, all of this was about the process they went through to make significant change. In Victoria, they took down the statue of John A. Macdonald. I have to be really careful when I say his name, because when I first heard it, I heard it as Johnny. So I call him Johnny Macdonald, but he's not Johnny. And the webinar talks about the process that they went through with working and building a relationship with the Indigenous peoples from that area. So that was one. And in that same webinar, it was Halifax and so Cornwallis. So a very long process there with the park name and a statue around Cornwallis. And then the other one that is currently still ongoing is Dundas Street, or Toronto, and the name Dundas. And the process that they are going through currently, looking at what it would mean to change the name or not change the name. So those were the 3 main ones. I did see that Winnipeg also, I picked up an article last year that Winnipeg has appointed I'm not sure if they call it a committee, a working party, to look at names and reflect a better diversity. Those were the main ones that I found. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Through your worship, I think there is a real opportunity for our community here. As you mentioned, Ms. Neal, obviously history being what it may, it held us to a point in time where those names were named during a colonial time and a different time, but it doesn't preclude us from the opportunity moving forward to potentially right the ship in a certain way to look at some of these spaces that we do have and the ability that we do have to change that dynamic and make the community feel more inclusive as a result. So I appreciate you bringing this forward. I think it's well worth the read, and I would happily share my copy with fellow councillors on it as well. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Cameron. And we've got Councillor Fawcett next.
Yes, thank you, through your worship. Thank you, Ms. Neal. I really appreciate your presentation, and of course, we always appreciate anybody that's taking interest in community in any fashion. So I think that's great. I do have a few things. We are working on all these things all the time. In the last decade, we've been doing so much work with the Indigenous community to try to improve it, and we know we got a long way to go, but even if you were here a decade ago, the changes are significant, and we continue to try to do that. We're continuing to try to do better, and that's a big piece. And actually, any kind of input on naming is always good, but here's one of my questions I have. We've had a lot of discussion in the last 5 years or so, all over the country here now as well, about naming. Would you suggest, or do you have any idea, should we maybe just not name things after people? Would that help?
No, I don't think so. I think that's opting out. I think there is a place within our community to recognize people, recognize our history as well. I think, I'm not a historian, and it probably needs a public historian to better sort of word this, but our past helps us with our future. And if we don't know our past, that doesn't help us for the future. And knowing our past is all around naming. And I do think naming in itself, what I have found with people making comments to me is, Louise Avenue, I didn't know who that was named after. And so you get into the history. So I think there is a whole place along with naming to put the explanation there as to why. And that helps. There are many, I don't think names have to be stuck in forever either. I don't think they need to be forever names. But they reflect the history of the time, and you can change things.
Yeah, okay, I appreciate that, and because I still personally don't have an issue with using names, but I am considering it more and more not, because I'm certain that everyone that was named, all the streets and such at the time, were done in good conscience and such, and just as we would try to do, only to, who knows, in 15, 20, 25 years, 50 years, they think, what was that council thinking? What were those people thinking? Why did they name any of those things that? So, it does seem like it is a recent phenomena here. It has been going on in different places over the years. But it's just, I don't want to opt out on it, but if people are going to complain, no matter what you name stuff, just name it Green Street or, trees. We have a lot of streets that are named Waterloo area, the Antelope Bay, and all those things. Nobody ever complains about them. They just live on them and they're happy. So it is a big discussion to have. I would like to get more input from the public as we do our namings.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Fawcett. And I'm not seeing any other hands up. I'll just kind of add in a word or two. Well, pardon me, I do have Councillor Chaboyer now, so I'll let her go first.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Ms. Neal. Thank you for the presentation. And it's nice to see a presentation recognizing women of the past. As a woman in a leadership role, and of course you're aware I'm the sole woman councillor on this council, I just love your idea about where are the women. And to put a different slant on your presentation, maybe if we can look at the present, maybe you should consider helping us out in a couple of years, a year and a half, when it's time for re-election of city councillors, and we could definitely use a campaign, Where Are the Women? I think that women are underrepresented in a lot of leadership roles, and so I think you have an important message, especially to all the younger women, where we're educating that women do play an important role in our communities and society. And so thank you for the presentation, and maybe something for you to consider.
Thank you.
Also, I just wanted to comment on about naming on Indigenous peoples. We did look at that at council, and we are considering, it just hasn't come up recently, we did ask administration to work with the Aboriginal Peoples Council too, and looking at maybe having namings for our trail system or something for the Aboriginal people too, because it was definitely noticed that there is not enough recognition in our community of First Nations and Indigenous people.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Chaboyer. And you did partly lead into the comment I did want to make, and that was concerning our council. And because we've just kind of passed our halfway point of this council, starting to get more questions from media and members of the public about, you know, what's next, who's running, and so on and so forth. And although in my view it's a little early to be making those kind of declarations, but what I have been doing is certainly emphasizing people who start beginning to think about running for council, and we certainly are wanting to attract more female candidates, as Councillor Chaboyer pointed out. She's currently the only female candidate councillor on our council. The previous council we started out with 3, which was still not nearly a decent balance, 3 out of 11 elected people. So I'm really wanting to emphasize that and just really start the ball rolling with respect to the great diversity we have in our community, but in terms of getting a better gender balance on council in the first place. Second takeaway for me in your presentation, Jane, is the history that we already have. And, you know, I think you've alluded to that, but I learned a little bit about some of the names that you did encounter and obviously did research. And I think we need to consider how we can attach the history of these names somehow, obviously at more pedestrian level, for people to be able to take in the history of the many street names that we have, really of all descriptions. So to me, that was something, you know, quite inspiring from your presentation here, that we could it could really open up a big door for us in terms of being able to make our community that much more interesting, just by, you know, with the use of some kind of plaques, QR codes. You know, there's, you know, lots of technology that could be utilized to help people understand our current street names and, you know, where they came from in the first place. So that certainly was a great takeaway from your presentation. So I'm not seeing any other hands up, so it was certainly a great way for us to start off 2021. I'd like to thank you on behalf of council for this presentation, and you know, the 20 minutes or so that you've been before us pales in comparison to I don't know how many hours it would have taken to pedal all across Brandon and to visit the streets and the locations that you did. Obviously, you got some great exercise and probably learned more about our community than most of us already know. So kudos to you for that, and thank you very much for this, and I'm going to really look forward to see where it goes. Thank you very much, Jane.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. A motion to receive would be in order, please. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the presentation by Jane Neal, entitled "Where Are the Women?" be received.
Great. Seconded by Councillor Chaboyer. Any discussion? Councillor Chaboyer, did you have your hand up for just a second?
Well, I guess I could say thank you very much again, Ms. Neal, for the presentation. And I think it's an important message that you have to recognize women from the past and the present, that we definitely play a role in this community. So thank you for bringing that to light. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion before we call for the question? Not seeing any, so I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Also under the order of presentations, Your Worship, a representation from James Montgomery and Bernie Crisp on behalf of the Brandon Riverbank Inc. regarding their 2020 report and the 2021 plans for the Riverbank and Brandon tourism.
Very good. Certainly a very important part of our community. So we always look forward to the report from the Riverbank. So go ahead, please, gentlemen.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to start off the presentation tonight, and James is going to jump in here fairly quick. So I'd like to, it's always a pleasure to present the Riverbank report for 2020 and some of our plans for 2021, and hopefully they come to fruition. I would first of all like to thank our board for all the work that they do over the year, and also our staff, our great staff that we have here at the Riverbank. Without the fantastic staff that we do have, our 5 full-time members and our part-time staff, certainly the grounds and the building and all the programs and that sort of thing would not be carried out. So I would like to salute them right off the bat. Right at the next slide, if you could, please. I'm not sure, do we have the slides up above? Can everybody see them?
Not yet. It's coming. There we go.
There we go. Okay, if you could give me the next slide, please. Yeah, the 2020 at a glance, and basically I want to just emphasize these points, and then James is going to pass them on. So anyway, we have a very strong partnership with the City of Brandon, with all the different departments that are involved with the Riverbank. We have the completion of the new east wetland viewing platform and floating dock this year. And we have also the completion of the Westman Dreams for Kids accessibility park, which was constructed this past summer. The improvements to the interpretive signage and ground are ongoing on the grounds, and certainly are coming to fruition, and really have been a benefit to the community. The new tour, the Brandon tourism initiatives that are launched, and there is a report in the package regarding Brandon tourism. And there's some very exciting items that are coming up within that particular report. The pathway improvements, and I can't say enough to emphasize our thanks to the city staff for finishing up the pathways this year. It's amazing how many people are using this facility on the weekends, and also the great weather that we've had in the last couple of weeks and the last month actually. And people are using the paths. The parking lot is full. Just unfortunately, our building is closed, but certainly the paths are being used, and I want to emphasize again, and a big thank you to the staff for completion of those. It's been a long time, since 2011, I believe, when we had the first flood that washed out a lot of the paths, and finally they're back in shape and they're being well used. The canoeing kayak launch site, we have plans underway for that facility also, and James will emphasize some of those plans when he speaks. Our new fundraising initiatives, we got a number of fundraising initiatives that are ongoing, and certainly hope to bring those up to date in the next little while. And also, we assisted the City of Brandon and Maple Leaf Foods in giving away 500,000 face masks this year to assist with the containment of COVID-19. And I do want to emphasize that we, in our facility, we have taken responsibility for the COVID situation, and the staff have done an excellent job here. Masks are required, and certainly as we move on, and hopefully the building will be open in the near future, we'll continue on with those items that require the COVID containment. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, we assisted the City of Brandon and Maple Leaf Foods in giving away 500,000 face masks to assist with the containment of COVID-19, and a number of our staff were involved in assisting with that particular program. Next slide. Festival Park. The stage naming rights are to be sold to a corporate partner, and we're looking to the future, and we hope to be able to announce a particular partner for that facility in the near future. We have a number of tentative bookings slated for 2021 already, and hopefully, with the COVID situation under control, we'll be able to have a number of events on that facility. It's a gorgeous facility, and it's a facility that should be used. Festival Park will be ready to welcome the community and the visitors when it's safe to do so. Next slide. Just want to mention the importance of partnerships, and I just want to again mention the City of Brandon. It's integral to the operations. All the departments were efficient and meshed well with the Riverbank tourism employees. We have a great relationship with the City of Brandon, and certainly we want to continue that particular move and that sort of thing in the future. So I'm going to turn this over to James now, and he can talk a bit about the other partnerships that we do have and continue on with the report. James?
Thanks, Bernie. Thank you, Your Worship and councillors, and thank you, Jane, for that great presentation. Another partnership I look forward to continuing is with Jane and working together on some common goals. And I just want to actually, it was fitting that Jane went first because we will be working with the Brandon Urban Aboriginal Peoples Council. Soon as they have a new person in charge there on looking at naming our trails here at the riverbank. Some indigenous names. So we are looking into that aspect of things. And Jane, as you know, we are trying our best to figure out what we're doing with the Eleanor Kidd space park over there, and also with the gardens that are planned in the master plan for here around the Discovery Center. So we are continuing to work on that. But as I told you before, we are held up by financial aspects. As soon as we're able to, we move forward on a project. I also want to touch on you can see the list of partnerships we have. This is a short list. I'm sure there's more. We also we have some exciting projects underway. We partnered with the Manitoba Métis Federation for Manitoba 150 Louis Riel banners around the Discovery Center here, and worked with a lot of different groups throughout Brandon. Next slide. Unfortunately, Envirothon 2020 was canceled due to COVID. There are plans underway for 2021. However, they're not moving very fast at this moment. Envirothon is an educational skill building competition that encourages students to apply their environmental studies to challenging field tests and an oral presentation to a panel of expert judges. Our program coordinator, Danielle, is in charge of that, and she did a very good job in 2019. We're hoping to have Envirothon in 2020. However, that will depend on the COVID situation. Next. The Christmas craft sale was canceled, as well as a lot of other events. Plans are underway for 2021. We did promote local crafters on social media and our website to try to get them some business. So hopefully that helped them out a little bit. Next slide. We're real excited and proud to get some of the master plan projects completed this year. Even in a tough year, 2020 was, we were able to complete the first phase of the East Wetland project, which included a new boardwalk, gangway, and also a floating floating dock for people to enjoy the east wetland, the wildlife, and just connect to nature in the city. It's a very unique spot if you haven't been there yet. And we also did some pathway improvements around the east wetland, which we're hoping to continue next year. And we also, Brandon Tourism, continued to implement and promote the community place brand, Brandon Brings You Back. As Bernie mentioned, there was lots of trail improvements, including the footbridge access, which flooded frequently. That's now been built up and repaved and looks really good. So that should allow for access to the footbridge and over the footbridge to Ashley Neufeld and other trails and throughout the city, even in high water situations. We also did some interpretive signage improvements, as well as some other signage improvements to encourage people to post what they see and what they see for wildlife and nature pics on social media, and as well some signage to let people know to leave the environment alone, to leave the animals and the vegetation alone, to keep it beautiful for everyone. Next slide. So on the immediate horizon, we have the Peter Sawatsky Sculpture Garden that we're going to get back to fundraising full swing for. We've got plans for the Canoe Kayak Cove, which last year a couple councillors asked questions about when that was going to happen. We're working with Economic Development and Parks to come up with a plan, and we're also doing fundraising here at the riverbank to make that Canoe Kayak Cove happen this year. So hopefully installation this spring, and it'll be set up in a way that it'll be able to be removed for the winter and then put back in the spring. We also, as you can see in the picture, received a $5,000 grant from Westhoba Credit Union for the creation of an all-nations sharing circle, which will continue our reconciliation efforts and also allow a space for people to safely learn from each other. And we intentionally call it the All Nations Sharing Circle because it really is for everyone. And we're also we have and we will be working with BUPAC to consult on that project as well. But that's definitely going forward this spring as well. So very exciting news. Next slide. The Westman Dreams for Kids Accessibility Park was officially completed and opened. The total cost was $160,000, and it's the first of its kind in Western Manitoba, and has benefited children with physical and intellectual disabilities. And other than the times that it was closed, mandatory from the province due to COVID, it's been very well used, very busy. Both playgrounds have. It's just beautiful to see kids play side by side regardless of their abilities. Next slide. So we are working, as I said, with Parks and Economic Development on the Canoe Kayak Cove and how to work that out financially. It is about a $250,000 or so project. And so that planning is underway. We've had some meetings, and we're hopeful that Council will will approve a certain amount for the Canoe Kayak Cove, and we're doing our part for fundraising as well. We have received one confirmation of a grant so far, and there's another one likely coming. So we're trying our best to fundraise, although we may not have the full amount fundraised this year. And just a reminder, we did complete the Heart of the Corridor lighting project last year in 2019, so that won't be coming off the budgeted master plan from the city in the future. Next slide. So there's a few essential capital upgrades that we're requesting this year. And the first is already underway, and they're doing a decent job of it. But the landscaping and restoration of the green space affected by the lift station construction, that has been ongoing, and we look forward to that continuing. And I know there's some trees that need to be replaced and some trees to be planted around that building to help it to blend in. And we're confident that that restoration of that area will continue as it has since the completion of the building and well into the fall. Now, the creation of a gravel parking area near the two new picnic shelters, I'm not sure where that could go, but if a control gate is scheduled to go up there on that east access road, which will make it a lot more difficult for people to access those picnic shelters. So, been trying to figure out what we're going to do to have that control gate in place, but still have that area accessible and within a reasonable distance for people to walk and carry their picnic stuff and firewood or whatever they need in there. And I put in here a creation of scaled down Eleanor Kidd Park. As I said, I've talked to Jane about it. I think that space is very important. However, it is very prone to flooding, the original Eleanor Kidd Park across the river. And we do look forward to, when the financing comes through, creating a garden around the Discovery Center here. And I think the Eleanor Kidd name is a perfect name for that. Next slide. So obviously, we're not going to get into a lot of stats on 2020 because they're not very good. Our budget worked out not too bad, all things considered, but we were way down on facility rentals. We normally, up until the middle of March, we had our normal regular bookings of the multi-purpose room, which brought in about $2,000 a month on average. But from the middle of March until really the end of the year, we didn't have any multi-purpose room bookings. And if we did, it was 5 people or less. It was just very small bookings, half-day bookings. We also had less events, less souvenir sales, and less festival park bookings. We're hoping that 2021 will be a better year, and the City of Brandon's support through the 2021 budget process is an integral piece, as always. And we hope to work together to continue to grow and operate successfully. And our goals, as always, are to celebrate, recreate, and educate, and to be Brandon's premier green space while providing superior tourism services to visitors. And I really feel like we do that. We do the best job we can, and credit to our staff for sure. And this year we weren't able to celebrate as much, but we're still able to recreate, as Bernie said. The trails have been busy, and we're still able to educate. We were still able to do some swamp camps, some kids programs, some interpretive programming, although at a scaled down version of a normal year, but we were still able to carry through with that. So we're proud of that even during a COVID year. And I think one of the most important things we did this year was none of our staff contracted COVID, and to our knowledge, no one who visited here contracted COVID. So again, kudos to the staff for keeping up with cleaning. Next page. Just a couple before and after pictures. That's the construction of the new East Wetland platform and floating boardwalk, before and after. So the after picture is quite spectacular, actually, especially with a full pond. And I just wanted to mention, when it comes to partnerships, the pumping of water from the Assiniboine is actually the only way we can keep water up in that pond, as it's not a natural wetland. It was constructed by ducks. It's a demonstration wetland. And so we really do need the support of the city to continue to pump water from the Assiniboine. And we work with Ducks and the City of Brandon Parks Department to get that pump going and to pump the amount of water with the applicable screen to make sure there's no fisheries losses, and we get the proper permits and all that sort of thing. So that's a very important piece, and I hope that's able to continue. Next slide. So we put up some new signage. That's just an example of some of it. We fixed up some of the green signage that was underwater from the floods, and actually Cardinal Signs helped us with those restoring those greens. A lot of those 6 of those green signs to back to their original form, as they had the original artwork. Some of the metal and the plexiglass had to be replaced, but the new ones look real good, and we look forward to restoring some of the other ones should the financial abilities allow us to. And like I said, we put up some "What wildlife did you see today?" encouraging people to share on social media. And the left sign there is the original boardwalk contributors, who we didn't want to forget about when we built the new boardwalk. So the contributors to the new boardwalk are on there to the right, and the original boardwalk folks were recognized with a new sign, because that one was quite dated and you couldn't read it, so we redid that. Next slide. Right before COVID really hit the fan, we had a new partnership with the Wheat Kings. We went for a skating sign at the skating oval. It was a fantastic experience. We had most of the Wheat Kings out, and then we had them back here to the Discovery Center for a signing. So it was just a great night. Next slide. So a wish list for some capital upgrades. They're non-essential, but they would be important. And if we can find the money to do it, I think it's important. The dump station, Wheelwell station, is in a lot of need of repair. It needs to be painted, and I think there's got to be a way of getting that wheel well working again. During grad pictures are taken there, wedding pictures are taken there. It's a beautiful setting, but unfortunately that building and some of the vegetation has become dated and needs some TLC, as well as the picnic shelter that's right beside the playground. It needs a little bit of work as well. So those would be great to be considered. Next slide. Brandon tourism update. The new visitor guide for 2020, I thought was a fantastic design. It was designed for the visitor, and it was designed to make things easy to find, what to do, what to see, where to eat, where to stay. A more modern look, a new guide sections on murals, a focus on Manitoba 150, and an Indigenous focus. So the visitor guide for 2020 was fantastic, and Lanny's already working with Leach on 2021, and I'm sure the visitor guide will be great again for 2021. And we were able to do a better job of distributing the guide this year, and we actually did some road trips to within an hour to really try to promote Brandon for that staycation or that local visitor to come and visit. Next slide. So Brandon Tourism was approved for pandemic recovery assistance from Travel Manitoba. Among the initiatives in the marketing plan was a professional video campaign produced by Trident Films. And there will be several videos produced. And the following is the first video. Enjoy. Next slide.
It's been quiet around here these days, you know?
Manitoba and the world are navigating through an unprecedented health and economic situation with COVID-19.
A lot of things have changed.
Not sure if the sound's going to work.
Drastically.
A lot of you have already probably seen this. It's been viewed about 80,000 times.
Would definitely be an understatement, right? Of course, we remember glimpses.
And we boosted this to reach right across Canada.
Even more now than we ever did before.
Basically, it takes a different look at the pandemic and how we've had to adjust
We
our
miss a lot of
lives.
things. We miss the roads we drove on, the places we've been to, the food we've had, the world we enjoyed. And
Anyway,
most
I
of all, we
encourage you
miss
to
the
watch
people
this
we
video
had
with
around us.
sound if you can later
See,
on.
the
It's
easiest
on
thing
Brandon
we took for
Tourism
granted was the
website and
people we see
social
every
media.
day. But now, we miss them.
It's very well done,
dearly.
and we're looking forward to the
beauty
next
of life is, while we
next several
cannot undo
videos
what
that
is done,
Trident's going to do.
we can see it, understand it, learn from it, and change, so that every new moment from here on out is spent not in regret, guilt, fear, or anger, but in understanding our favorite place to be is being with the people we love.
Your Wheat Kings are the champions!
So it really celebrates Brandon, but it also touches on the fact that things have really changed this year. Well, I'm hearing the sound.
So regardless of who you are, what you do, or where you're from, look around you. It's the people in your lives that define moments of a lifetime.
Okay, next. A bit of a tourism update. Other things that are being done with the pandemic, recovery assistance, money from Travel Manitoba, street signage with the Brandon Brings You Back, downtown and at the riverbank, banners with the brand or the place brand logo, and a partnership with Art Gallery Southwestern Manitoba on an art installation that's focused on the brand and why Brandon brings you back. And as well, we have the reusable shopping bags for sale here at the Discovery Center with the Brandon Brings You Back logo on them. Next. Real good partnership this year through Travel Manitoba was Brianne Holman. She's a social media influencer. She's got over 18,000 followers. She came here in July and she promoted our city via her Instagram account and wrote a blog on her website that Brandon Tourism later shared via social media channels. So that was a real strong partnership with Brianna. Next. Also, Brandon Tourism worked with the city's IT department on a virtual mural tour, and that's available on the city and tourism websites. And the tour includes artist bios of each mural and is a great visual representation of the downtown. So again, this was an adaptation to COVID to do things that were safe to do in this environment. Next. And the same as Trip Via Tours. It's an app company, and Brandon Tourism worked with them on an audio tour guide for different buildings, and just gives visitors and the community and locals who want to know more about the city information. And there are two tours, one on older buildings downtown and one on some heritage homes downtown as well. Next. Bernie.
Thank you, James. And on behalf of our board and our staff and James and myself, I would like to thank the Brandon City Council, administration, and staff for your amazing support and unwavering commitment this past year. We have exciting times ahead, as you've seen, and we look forward to your continued partnership. Once again, thank you, everyone, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Well, thank you very much, Bernie and James. Very fulsome presentation, and certainly Riverbank is certainly a crown jewel of our community. And kudos to you and and your teams for being able to soldier on through the pandemic and try and certainly continue to improve the area, even in spite of the limitations that you had available. So certainly a great job to keep moving forward, and the plans looking ahead look fabulous as well. So as routinely do, we'll open up the floor for questions that there may be, although again the presentation was quite thorough, so we'll see if there's still some unanswered questions though. Not seeing any hands. I got a hand up now, Councillor Lupke.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to our presenters, you kind of answered the one question I had written down, which was plans for 2021, particularly from a marketing and promotion standpoint. I know I've enjoyed several walks down in the Riverbank area here during the winter season, and seen many people out there. And I think continuing that momentum and getting more people down there is important moving forward in 2021 as we hopefully come out of the pandemic. So appreciate some of those comments and what you're doing with Trident and those kind of things. The one question I also had when you talk about Eleanor Kidd Park, and of course on many of my walks I go by the area, I'm just wondering if there's been any determination or thoughts on the ability to salvage any parts of the area there that are kind of currently in disrepair. But I just wonder if there's any salvageable items there, because I can remember many years ago attending weddings in that area and that kind of thing. So just wondering if that's a possibility, or if you're thinking something entirely new.
Yeah, Bruce, it's a tricky one with that area because it is flood prone over there. So to invest a lot over there, I'm not sure is the best use of funds, which are hard to come by these days. However, there have been some ideas thrown around. First of all, this past fall, the area was cleaned up, and the area was cleaned up of some dead trees, and some of the shrubs and things were cleaned up from that area. One of the ideas that has been bounced around is possibly having an Eleanor Kidd ruins on that site. So we have a spot for a sign over here that could show what Eleanor Kidd Park used to look like, and also detailing the power of the river and, honoring Eleanor Kidd, but, keeping that place cleaned up and safe to visit while honoring the past of what it used to be and looking forward to what we can put here on the grounds of Discovery Center to replace it. So that's a tricky question because we really haven't come up with a solid plan on that yet.
And I appreciate that answer, James. My question was more about like some of the pillars that are there, like could those be moved to the new Eleanor Kidd Gardens if it was in an area somewhere else? That's more where I was thinking is some of the parts being salvageable and perhaps moved to the new spot that you're planning.
I do see...
sorry, go ahead.
James. I see our General Manager of Development Services and City Engineer Patrick Pulak had his hand up about the time this question came up. I know they've been working down there, so I'm not sure if Patrick was trying to add in some information about this particular question. So go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Lupke. Bruce, I was just mentioning that, or I was just thinking when we were doing some of the work in that area, we did salvage what we could as far as maintaining what was there, and for years we had that road that was going out to that manhole, and we salvaged all that rock and we armored what was left behind. As far as your question about taking any of that stuff out, it would be a question on, and I'm going to guess that those pillars are actually sitting on piles, and whether or not they were poured at the same time as the piles were. So there may be an opportunity, there may not. I tend to agree with James in that I'd hesitate to do anything at that area. If we can move some of that stuff, we have to give some thought to it, that's all.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Back to you though, James, if you were still having something to add to that one.
No, I think that, thanks, Patrick. Appreciate that.
Very good. I do have Councillor Fawcett up, except I also had Acting City Manager Dean Hammond with his hand up, so he may want to add something to that. So I'll go to Dean first.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just wanted to add that I believe the Parks Department has collected a bunch of the bricks and a bunch of the materials from Eleanor Kidd Park, and that is sitting in our parks compound to potentially be reused at some point in time.
Thank you, Dean. Okay, now I'll come back to Councillor Fawcett.
Yeah, thank you, Rick, through your worship. Great presentation, you two, James, Bernie. Of course, I'm down at the riverbank all the time, and fortunately I live near it, and it is such an asset to our city, having lived through its decimation, 10 years ago or so, and then again 6 years ago. It's fantastic, and our plan to live within our means there now is wonderful. In the case of what Councillor Lutke was talking about there, I think that what exists there now is good there. It has taken the brunt of number of floods. It's not going anywhere. I also worked on the original installation of that project a long time ago, and what is there is pretty permanent. So it is still an asset. I run by it all the time. I walk by there all the time. So if we could do something that James is thinking there, I think we look at it. I also did want you to know that it is in the budget to look at the kayak and canoe docking area. So we will be talking about that in the next few weeks at our budget. I also wanted to know, if you have any kind of idea on the numbers, because we don't have anybody going through the doors per se, but I'm down there a lot, and the activity that we're getting because of COVID, it's wonderful. They get such great usage. I'm so glad that we had the work done that gets us onto the bridge. That was so necessary. I also didn't catch there, James, if you mentioned how you have the trails in what I would call the east of the bridge. When you cross it to the south east of the bridge, we have all our trails that go through the floodplain along First Street and all that. And that's a great, well-maintained trail for everybody to walk and ride their bikes and everything. And I also have, as a champion in the Indigenous community as much as I can be for the last 10 years as well, I want to thank the Riverbank for always being one of our sort of great partners. One of the first to be putting the teepees up, always on there for Indigenous Day, meeting out there again for our Orange Shirt Day, Barb Blind doing all her touring, and that I think that you need to continue doing that. And we are really looking forward to a great new year. It's been so fantastic to see it come back around, and I see a lot of progress going forward. So thanks on that, James. And if by chance you have no way of knowing the numbers that are or usage, really, do you?
No, we keep stats on events, as you know, and we haven't had many, and we keep stats on visitors to the center and where they're coming from and and age and different demographics, just things like that. But yeah, I agree. It's been very busy ever since the start of the pandemic. I'm actually very proud that we never closed our trails. We closed our picnic shelters and our playgrounds and our exercise equipment because of the provincial health orders. But we encouraged people to keep using the trails, respecting physical distancing, and they've done that. Brandon people have done that very well. The parking lot's been packed, but I go out and I walk the trails on a nice Sunday afternoon, and people are in their family groups, and they're physically distancing. If they're talking to each other, they're 2 meters apart. Just really nice to see, because people need sunlight, they need fresh air, and they need exercise. So we're proud to have provided that space here.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, James, I just wanted to follow up one thing. I had told James and Bernie I was going to ask them about looking into putting paths on the river, maybe going forward next year, or at least looking, in Winnipeg they do that, in Ottawa they do that, lots of places they do that. And just sort of looking at the, what would be the issues we'd face? Is it possible that we could do that? And again, pandemic, great weather outside, it would be great to have had it this year. But going forward, is that something we could look at?
Well, I'm really excited, about some of the conversations we've had about winter activities, potential winter sport, winter events down here. One thing that people can do right now is come down and snowshoe. There's adequate snow in a lot of places for snowshoeing. So doing more winter activities is definitely on our radar. Jeff, to your point of a skating trail on the river, I think that it just would depend on the thickness of the ice and make sure it's safe to do that. And then I think we should try to beat the Rideau Canal world record and have Brandon on the map as the longest skating trail in the world.
Very good. Well, I think Councillor Fawcett signed note, so that was an excellent way to end that off, and certainly we love to hear about the future prospects and just continue to add amenities and activities for people. This year has certainly, kind of highlighted the need for that, and I personally feel that even when we come out of this pandemic, people aren't going to go backwards. I think people are, have had a reawakening of a lot of different activities, and your area certainly is a great highlight. So I'm not seeing any other hands up for questions, so I think we've got it fairly well covered off. So once again to Bernie and James, thank you very much, and please thank your staff and your board, Bernie, for the ongoing efforts to keep the riverbank alive and continuing to improve and being so important for our community. So thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, motion to receive would be in order, please. Your award, Councillor Fawcett, go ahead. You're muted though, Jeff.
There we go. I was muted and I wasn't on the right spot here either. I will. Thank you. That's a presentation by James Montgomery and Bernie Crisp with respect to the Brandon Riverbank Inc. and Brandon Tourism 2020 report and 2021 plans be received.
Thank you. A seconder, please. Seeing Councillor Lupke. Any discussion?
No. Excellent presentation.
Very good. Not seeing any, so I think we're ready for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
The order of committee reports, Your Worship, but I'm not aware of any. But
so we've just kind of gone through the holiday time. There may not have been any committees met because we last had our council meeting on December 21st, and so we're practically just covered over the holiday period. So unless there are any, we would take them now that there were some that we weren't aware of. Not seeing any, we can go to the next item of business, please.
The order of inquiries, Your Worship.
Inquiries. I know we've got at least one or two. Councillor Desjardins, go ahead.
Yes, thank you to Your Worship. Brandon's seeing a growing number of Airbnbs pop up throughout the community. So I just had a couple of questions for administration. What regulations, municipal or provincial, are Airbnb business owners required to follow? And is it possible, or have we looked into the city working with Airbnb as an opportunity for collecting accommodation tax for those Airbnbs that would fall under hotel regulations?
Thank you very much, Councillor Desjardins. And Acting City Manager Dean Hammond does have a response ready for us, so go ahead please, Mr. Hammond.
Thank you, Your Worship. This response has been provided by Sandy Trudell, the Director of Economic Development. Under the building code, there are no specific regulations with regards to Airbnbs unless the owner rents out the entire house and does not live on the premises. In that scenario, the house would be treated like a hostel or a hotel and subject to the associated regulations. From the planning department's perspective, there are no specific zoning regulations attributable to an Airbnb except to provide off-street parking like you would for any overnight guest that is visiting your home. The city's licensing department has also confirmed that there are no special license requirements for an Airbnb. And from the Manitoba Health perspective, Airbnb and bed and breakfast are unregulated businesses and fall under the dwelling and buildings regulations. As such, if a complaint was ever lodged with Manitoba Health, inspectors would require access through the landlord or owner of the property. However, it would have to be for a public health issue such as no running water, bed bugs, or that type of issue. Regarding the councillor's second question about the possibility of working with Airbnbs for the collection of accommodation taxes, note that currently under the accommodation tax bylaw, the bylaw does not apply to hotels, motels, or any type of lodging with less than 4 persons. But of course that bylaw could be amended by council if they so wished.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Covered Councillor Jarley?
Mostly, just a very quick follow-up, and I just want to maybe provide a backgrounder. I received a call from a concerned resident who lives in a condo, some shared living, well, her own place, but the condo is part of a sixplex, and there's an Airbnb that's in business in her condo unit, and noticing some out of province license plates during the pandemic. So that she's rightly concerned like anybody would be, and they're probably following regulations. But it did remind me that we've thrown around looking and visiting Airbnb and what regulations they do follow, whether or not they should be covered under an accommodation tax. And I know that Airbnb has started to work with some larger municipalities to ensure that they could indeed recover accommodation tax through the Airbnb website. Probably small potatoes for a municipality the size of Brandon, but I think it's something that we might want to look at sooner rather than later. Just knowing that this is a growing business, and there likely are some Airbnb rentals that would fall under hotel regulations and be renting out their home quite often to more than 4 people at a time, right? So I just think it's something that we want to take a look at, and if not before budget, certainly not long afterward.
Thank you, Councillor Jarley. We'll see where that might take us. And now I know we had at least one that came in this afternoon, and Councillor Cameron had a conversation from a resident making some observations. So go ahead, Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the city manager, and knowing with the timing of this, it is quite possibly just something that we'll ask the city to take under advisement at this time. But I did receive a call from a resident actually of the south end of Brandon this afternoon. And with the opening of Maryland Park School today, which, is a monumental celebration in itself for our community, the first school to open in a number of years. But I did receive a call from the resident of Ward 8, Richmond Ward, seeking some clarity from the city on how we would be able to address and help potentially alleviate some of the safety concerns with regards to traffic on Maryland Avenue. This morning, the resident did note that traffic was backed up in both directions to Crocus Plains School to the east, as well as through the traffic circle and down 9th Street from Maryland to the west. Just wondering if the city would be able to possibly take this under advisement. I know Councillor Chaboyer as well had brought this up in October, so further to that, if the city would be able to take that under advisement, and if traffic planners and or bylaw enforcement might be able to assist in mitigating some of the traffic concerns there. And then as well, during the call, the resident did note as well, with the increased traffic due to the school, there were some concerns with regards to sanding efforts, especially at the corner of 9th and Aberdeen. Just wondering if the city could look at this intersection as well for further sanding. And I appreciate you allowing this to go on this evening so we can get an answer back to the resident.
Great, no problem, and thanks for that, Councillor Cameron. I think Mr. Hammond was aware of the inquiry, but can provide some early comments on that.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll definitely have our traffic and public works departments look into this and see if there is any way we can provide any assistance, and we'll take your inquiry under advisement, and we will report back to council on any efforts that we undertake.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Very good. So now I'm not sure if there were any, that was the one inquiry we were aware of that had come in late. Sometimes there are others, so we would take them now if there were some. Okay, not seeing any hands up, so we can move on to the next item, please, Madam Clerk.
The order of announcements, Your Worship.
Very good. Any announcements early in the new year here? Sadly, we have a lot less events to talk about, so that's certainly cutting down on the announcements, but we hope for a return to that before too long. Okay, not seeing any announcements, we can move on to the next item, please.
Under the order of general business, Your Worship, we have the 2021 citizen appointments to the Westman Regional Library Board.
Very good. Councillor Brown?
That the following citizens' appointments be and are hereby made to Western Manitoba Regional Library Board for 2-year terms of office to begin January 1st, 2021 and expire December 31st, 2022. And it's Matthew Berry and Wayne Kelly.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Cameron. Whoever wish to speak? Okay, I do see Councillor Chaboy's hand up, but I'm not sure if she wanted to speak or if she was trying to second. Okay.
Trying to second. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, I'm not seeing any other speakers at the moment. So I would think this is fairly straightforward. As everyone knows, we do advertise for all of these positions and get nominations in, and often we receive just enough nominations to fill the slots. At other times we have an abundance and council will vote on them. But that said, we are ready for the question on this one. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
The citizen appointments to the Brandon Urban Aboriginal Peoples Council.
Okay, we need a mover on that one.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm hoping Jeff can, because I don't have the names up on my phone right now.
Very good. Councillor Fawcett, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, through Your Worship, that the following citizens be and are hereby appointed to the Brandon Urban Aboriginal Peoples Council to commence January 1st, 2021 and expire December 31st, 2022. Debbie Huntinghawk and Darlene Paquette.
Thank you. I presume Councillor Desjarlais would second that. Both members of BUPAC. Thank you, Councillor Desjarlais. Mover wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, through Your Worship. Wonderful additions. Debbie Huntinghawk has been with us previously as she was the chair Friendship Center, and so it's great to continue to have her on there. And Darlene Paquette, who's been active in the community for years and years, had actually run for council and is a go-getter out there, and she'll be great to have us moving forward as well. And just a general congratulations to all citizens that put their names up for this. We've got 7 women and 8 men that are being appointed, and they come from all walks of life. over here, and I think it's great that everybody in the community feels they could be on these things, and we really value their participation.
Nicely said, and I totally agree. It's great that it's a little bit of unsung work goes on in all these committees, kind of in behind the scenes, and it's serves an invaluable service to our community, all these citizen appointees. So thank you for highlighting that, Councillor Fawcett. I don't see any other hands up, so I think we're probably ready for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next item, please.
Is the citizen appointments to the Poverty Committee, Your Worship.
And Councillor Lupke.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the following citizen appointment be and is hereby made to the Poverty Committee for a 2-year term of office to commence January 1st, 2021 and expire December 31st, 2022. That single person, Shannon Saltarelli.
Thank you very much. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Chaboyer. Whoever wishes to speak?
I do briefly, Your Worship. Just want to thank our outgoing committee member, Brian Clark, for his contribution to the Poverty Committee over the last 2 years. And I'm sure Ms. Saltarelli will be a valuable addition. I know she's been involved with work with the Brandon Bear Clan and Samaritan House Ministries, obviously 2 organizations that are involved with vulnerable people on almost a daily basis. So I'm sure she will be a valuable addition to our Poverty Committee.
Well said. Any other discussion? Okay, we're ready for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
Is the appointments to the Board of Revision.
And Councillor Chaboyer, your hand up or just late taking it down to move that? I'll go with Councillor Fawcett.
Yeah, thank you, through Your Worship. That the following citizen appointments be and are hereby paid to the Board of Revision for a 1-year term of office to commence January 1st, 2021 and expire January 31st, 2021. Matthew May, Wally Geiler, Jason Splett.
I'll just note that Matthew May is designated as the chair, just to make sure we all know that. And seconded by Councillor Cullen. Whoever wishes to speak?
Through Your Worship, I think that we have at least a few returners there, and it's, again, that's a difficult position to be in for some of those people, and I'm really glad that they do it. It's Board of Revisions is it's important to have people doing that job. So thank you very much for putting their names up again.
Yes, I believe all 3 of these are returning members, if I'm not mistaken, Madam Clerk. And based on that, I think we are ready for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
The citizen appointments to the Board of the Brandon General Museum and Archives, Inc.
Councillor Brown.
That the following citizens be are hereby appointed to the Brandon General Museum and Archives Incorporated Board with a term of office to commensurate January 1st, 2021 and expire December 31st, 2022. Connie Bach, Brock McEwing, Sajid Real, and Danelle Waterfield.
Thank you. And I think that's seconded by Councillor Cameron. Either the mover or seconder wish to speak?
No, I'd just like to say that a couple of these people were on the board last year, and I'd like to thank them for volunteering for another 2-year term. And welcome the new members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any other discussion? And seeing none, we're ready for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next item, please.
The appointments to the Municipal Heritage Advisory Committee.
Motion, please. Councillor Cameron, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. That the following citizens' appointments be and are hereby made to the Brandon Municipal Heritage Advisory Committee with terms of office beginning January 1st, 2021 and expiring December 31st, 2022. Matthew May, Gordon McCrae, and Sejad Rao.
Thank you. Seconder, please. And Councillor Brown. Who wishes to speak?
Just briefly, Your Worship, as echoed by the other members of council, thank you to these three individuals for allowing their name to stand again. All three are returning members to the committee, so we welcome having them back and having their input for the year to come.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cameron. I don't see any further discussion, so we're ready for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next item, please.
The appointments to the Age Friendly Committee, Your Worship.
And Councillor Chaboyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the following citizen appointments be and hereby appointed to the Age Friendly Committee for a 2-year term of office beginning January 1, 2021 and expiring December 31st, 2022. Susan Boychuk, Marilyn Forsyth, and Brock McEwing.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Lupke. Whoever wishes to speak?
Yes, Your Worship. I would like to thank Susan Boychuk and Brock McEwing for allowing their name to stand again. They did an incredible amount of work in the last term, and so I look forward to working with them. The whole committee looks forward to working with them again. And I'm quite excited to welcome Marilyn Forsyth to the committee. Marilyn's been very active in the community, and so I'm sure that we will enjoy and reap the benefits of her activism in the community.
Nicely put. Any other discussion? And not seeing any, we'll call for the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. And next item, please.
Under the order of bylaws, Your Worship, bylaw number 7291, which is to repeal the City of Brandon Sunday shopping and extended holiday bylaw.
Very good. We've got second and third readings recommended. Need a mover. Councillor Desjardins, go ahead. You're muted though, Chris, can you? There you go.
Yep. Thank you. Your Worship, I move that bylaw number 7291 to repeal bylaw number 6344 as amended to permit expanded retail shopping on certain public holidays, including Sundays, be read a second time.
Seconder, please. Councillor Parker. I think Councillor Parker is seconding that. Your hand was up, so I'm taking it. And any discussion, or the mover was to speak first?
If anybody from City wanted to just chime in, give us Cole's notes from 20 seconds or less.
Very good. Not sure, Madam Clerk, if there was somebody on board that was prepared to speak to this, City Manager. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, Your Worship, and through to Council. This is just a housekeeping bylaw with the introduction of legislation by the province. The bylaw becomes redundant, so it's a matter of just getting it off the books at this point. If Council somewhere down the line wishes to impose further restrictions on shopping, we can do that, but we would need a new bylaw. So at this point, this is just a housekeeping to clean up our listings.
Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Desjardins. Do you have anything you wanted to add?
Nope, that's great.
Okay, was there any other discussion or questions? Councillor Lupke and then Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess the only question I have, and Ms. Wozniak talked about it, is there a plan to have some type of conversation with either our business community or even our retail working community on whether or not we want to explore a further bylaw after repealing this existing one? And I don't know if there's an answer to that tonight. I just wonder if that's something we should be looking at some point in the next several months.
That's a fair question, Councillor Lukey. As Council is aware, this did come upon us fairly abruptly. I think that it was introduced and passed in the legislature. In fact, I think it passed even quicker than they thought on a Wednesday and came into effect on a Friday, which was a few days prior to our last council meeting. So really wasn't too much opportunity for us to create a new bylaw. And as you can see, we were doing our fastest just to kind of clean up the old one. So I think that, and probably, COVID times has certainly not been the most ideal for public consultation, but I think Councillor Lukey's point is well taken, that we should engage the business community, possibly through the Chamber of Commerce, to see what appetite there is, both in the business community and in the general community, obviously, to consider whether there should be any other restrictions. I guess as it will stand now, the marketplace will just take care of it, really, as it does with all the other hours. Like, they're really only substantively Sunday was regulated. Theoretically, businesses could be open 24 hours a day, the other previous 6 days a week, and people just opened as they saw fit, whether there were regulations or not. So again, that's what will come into effect now, and we'll, I guess, see how the community feels about it. Again, COVID has been a bit of a tough time. Precious few businesses are open as it is at the moment, and we're looking forward to those being restored fairly quickly. But I'll go to Councillor Cameron now for your comments.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is through you, perhaps, to Acting City Manager Dean Hammond, or to pass on to one of his departments from there. I did have a resident reach out following the first reading of this bylaw with some concerns. They work in the retail sector and are reliant on transit on Sundays to be able to access work to and from work, obviously, and with the changes to the hours, our transit system doesn't really line up quite as well as far as being able to get them to work on time in the morning, and then ultimately more so when they're coming home, with our last runs happening at 7 o'clock and some of the retail spaces being able to be open as per a normal day. So just one consideration as we're heading into budget is to look at how this may actually impact our transit system as well, and especially the users that are relying on that to get to and from places of employment on Sundays especially.
Thank you. And Mr. Hammond does have his hand up, so go ahead, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So coincidentally, we have an informal meeting with Council next Monday to discuss the transit budget. So at that time, that would be a great time to bring up that question, Councillor Cameron, and we can discuss it then.
Great. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you. Other discussion on the second reading of this bylaw? Not seeing any other hands up, so I think we're ready for the question then on second reading. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And third reading would be in order if you wanted to, Councillor Desjardins.
Thank you. That the bylaw be read third and final time.
Thank you. Seconder again, please. Councillor Chaboyer. Thank you. Any further discussion? Not seeing any, and I'm going to call for the question. And third reading, a recorded vote is required, so I'll have to take a little more time to watch the hands. All those in favor? opposed? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item, please.
Bylaw number 7294, which is the Affordable Housing Financial Assistance Program.
And first reading only, please. Councillor Lupke.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that bylaw number 7294 to establish an affordable housing financial assistance program be read a first time.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Desjardins. Thank you. And again, first reading just gets the process started, not normally debatable. So we're going to call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Next item, please.
Giving of notice, Your Worship.
Any giving of notice this evening? Now, Councillor Parker's hand up, but it may have just stayed up. Not sure. Thank you. Okay, giving of notice. I'm not seeing any, so we can move on to the next item, please.
A motion to adjourn would be in order, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Barry, seconded by Councillor Chaboyer. Ready for the question? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Once again, we muddle through. We're grateful. We're certainly, they're not ideal, these virtual meetings. We all would prefer to be together in the council chambers and be able to invite the public in there with us, and that will eventually return. But in the meantime, this certainly is a reasonable way to be able to continue to conduct city business and just keep going. So everyone carry on, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks all. Good night.